There's no hormones involved with these cow production. You know, all the organic standards are prevailing in terms of the production. And so it's a completely natural environment. And the cows live 4 times longer because of it. They put out less milk, but the milk value and quality is much higher. I mean, you got different kinds of butterfat. The omega-3, omega-6 fatty acid ratios are different. The CLA values are different. It's just an entirely different milk. It's a natural milk. And we find most dramatically, most excitingly, is that when you go natural like this and you put the cow in a green grass pasture, you never find pathogens. And pathogens are disease-causing organisms for human beings. Bad bugs. You never find them. They're just not there.
Are the cows themselves just healthier?
They're healthier, but their physiology has changed. The rumen is a completely different environment when you don't have antibiotics. Antibiotics are an indiscriminate shotgun on the body. They go in and they're intended to kill a particular pathogen, let's say, that's making a disease process occur, let's say, causing an infection in the uterus or something, or not the uterus, but the udder. Mastitis. Well, it doesn't just go after that infection. It goes after every bacteria in the entire body. And what is a cow? A cow is a living organism with a big digestive tract that is a fermentation vat, is what it is. Well, fermentation takes place because of bacteria and temperature, warmth. Well, guess what? You're going to knock out those bacterium with antibiotics. So the digestive tract completely goes to shreds when you give a cow antibiotics. So you feed them a lot of grain, a lot of antibiotics, you put them in a place where there's no green grass, and you start seeing pathogens in their manure, and lots of pathogens. In fact, the UC Davis studies have found that 31% of the milk tanks that were tested in the last few years showed that they had a human pathogen present in the raw manure, excuse me, in the raw milk from these cows, and that came from the raw manure on these dairies that use all these conventional factory farm practices. When our manure was tested, not one single solitary human pathogen was found in the herd when they tested the fresh raw manure. Let's talk about 4 things: pasteurization, homogenization, standardization, and then supplementation. Those are probably the 4 things we could probably talk about with milk. Conventional dairy systems and the current paradigm, if you will, the culture we have in the United States, is where you take milk to a creamery. And the milk is collected from many different dairies and goes to a creamery, allows a very high level of bacteria in that milk because it's all commingled together, and it goes through a pasteurizer. The pasteurizer is heat treatment. That's all it is, heat treatment. The milk is taken to at least 140 degrees in a vat, or 161 degrees. In the vat, you would take it for maybe 30 minutes. It would be a long-term kind of thing. Pasteurization at HTST, which is the high temperature short time pasteurization, is 161 degrees for about 15 to 20 seconds, depending on whose standard you're working on. Or ultra high temperature pasteurization, which is 282 degrees for 3 to 5 seconds. And that's where they take it to regular pasteurization temperature, and then they inject culinary steam to rocket it way up, literally 120 degrees higher, and then back down by a cooling process. Those processes basically kill most of the bacteria.
Good and bad.
Everything. Indiscriminate. They don't select out and say, you stand in this line, you stand in this line. They all line up and get shot in the head. Okay? During that process, the bacterium that are being killed, the cell bodies, membranes are being broken open. That's how you kill the bacteria. Well, those cell membranes, when they're broken open, release their cytotoxins and the various different things inside of the cell membrane. Their internal contents are spilled out. Those internal contents are histamines. They are the minuscule proteins that are foreign to your body because your body doesn't know how to understand these little foreign things that are coming from inside of a dead cell. It could see the big cell and understands it. It could recognize it. Oh, I know what that is. It's a bacteria. But when you break it open, you have all these little foreign proteins running around. Those are histamines, which starts a big battle and triggers an immune response of the histamine reaction. Histamine reactions can be asthma attacks, can be inflammation, can be tearing of the eyes, can be mucus production in your throat, can be itching, scratching, redness, all kinds of things that we all know and we all don't like. Histamine problems because we have, gets drowsy from taking antihistamines and that whole thing. So the pasteurization process renders this milk to be basically low bacteria count in terms of living bacteria, but very high bacteria in terms of if a dead bacteria count is extremely high, but they're all dead. Or many of them are all dead.
And we should really explain again that the milk as it comes out of the cow
clean.
It's basically clean if the cow's clean, if the environment's clean, the cow's eating the right stuff. But that there are bacteria in it that typically, if it's a good environment, the bacteria are good for your body.
Oh, absolutely. Well, what happens is the bacteria coming from the cow are generally fine. From inside of the udder, the milk is very clean. The problem is the cross-contamination from manure on the side of the bag or on the teat where the machine goes on. You can't sterilize the teat or the teat or the udder of the cow. It would be impossible. There's a very diverse bacteria count on the surface of the skin of the cow's teat when you put the machine on. And so it's not a sterile process. Although we try to keep it clean, it's not sterile. If you have bad bugs coming out of the manure of the cow, and it's somehow microscopically being contaminated in the cow milk, you're going to see it in the milk. So what matters is what's in the cow's manure ends up in the cow's milk microscopically.
Because that manure is everywhere. Because that's the way cows are.
Put a black light on and look for we live in a macroscopic environment. We don't see the micro. You look in the micro, it's everywhere. You know, it's like wearing a white suit in a black room that was just painted black. You're going to get black on you, but you can't see it because the bacteria is microscopic. It's everywhere. That's pasteurization. Okay. Raw milk does not ever undergo raw milk intended for human consumption does not undergo pasteurization. It's a living product which has a very, very low bacteria count.
Because if you pasteurize it, it would kill everything.
It would kill it.
It wouldn't be alive.
It would not be alive.
Okay.
Raw milk is a living, breathing food. Raw milk that is produced here at Organic Pastures Dairy has about 1,000 to 3,000 bacterium per milliliter of milk. Milk produced in a conventional dairy is allowed to have up to 50,000 bacteria per milliliter, and when taken to the creamery, can have up to 200,000 bacteria. Some dairy creameries have actually a lower standard. But what's interesting about that is they're all rendered dead by the pasteurization process, but the bacteria are still there, just in dead form. So the pasteurization process doesn't clean anything. It just kills it. So you have filthy dead milk, not filthy living milk. I think you get what I'm saying. Homogenization is a different process. Homogenization is phenomenally important to understand significantly as far as the history of milk is concerned. Back in the 20s and 30s and 40s when milk was being sold to the back doorstep of mom's house, you know, the milk could be delivered in a glass jar, and you could see the butterfat level in the top of the glass. And there was a lot of competition between the dairies who had more butterfat in their milk. And the person who had more butterfat got more money and got more consumers. Well, the housewife would look out back in the back and say, the free one that came from the competitor had more cream in the top, and the old one came from the old guy, had less cream. She'll take the new one and leave the other guy to rot and tell him that she wants the new dairy distribution, and so they'd win the competition on that household for milk, okay? Yeah. So it was a competition between who's got more fat and who doesn't have. Well, the dairy industry figured that out. And they said, you know what? You don't need to be worrying about butterfat anymore because we're going to homogenize it. We're going to make it all mixed together. And we're going to fortify it too. We're going to add in some vitamin A and vitamin D, which needs to be homogenized to mix it all together. And in case it doesn't have enough, we'll even add in some dried powdered milk to fortify it even some more, make it even better for you. So they got the people in this country convinced that destroying the butterfat so it no longer floated in the milk was important. What they didn't realize, or maybe they did realize, I'm not sure. If they did realize it was a crime, hopefully they didn't realize it, was that they were actually destroying an essential part of the embodiment of the milk itself. And that by crushing the butterfat cells and making them little pieces, they were releasing some very, very important enzymes which are not supposed to be in milk. They were destroying the butterfat as it was. They're making that butterfat from a nice, soft, big, spongy, marshmallowy looking thing that doesn't generally go through your intestines. It gets digested in your intestines and doesn't go through into little shards that move all over the place and go through your intestinal wall and get moved places they aren't supposed to be and get logged up and all kinds of problems happen. So they started having a solution to a business problem becoming a real value added to them because they no longer had to prove they had more butterfat. In fact, they could put less butterfat in and just add dried powdered milk in to make up the mouthfeel. Because skim milk looks blue, it doesn't look white. But you could add in other things to make the milk look white and have less butterfat because you can make your butter out of your butterfat and cheat it from the housewife who wanted whole milk. So it was a way to start cheating people out of their milk value and actually cheating our bodies out of nutritional value. And that hopefully was a side effect, not an intended effect. And some European nations have found in their studies, the FDA denies this, that coronary artery disease is directly associated to homogenized milk.
Today, I'm here with some extremely hazardous material. What I'm going to be working with is so dangerous that the CDC puts up hazardous warnings about this substance, and it was outlawed for interstate commerce in 1987. The Pediatric Association has called for a complete ban of this product because it is so dangerous. Are you ready? Parents and kids, please don't try this at home though. I'm going to take my mask off for a bit so I can try it. Actually, that's pretty good. Of course, I'm just kidding. My point in showing you these raw dairy products from small farmers who humanely take care of their animals and feed them properly is that they are very safe and unfairly demonized to ensure that farmers can't sell directly to you. As you're probably aware of by now, there's a war being waged against raw milk. Well, raw milk sales or distributions are legal in many U.S. states, and progress has been made towards improving access. There is strong opposition still to this trend. Each victory is hard won. Our federal health agencies claim to be protecting us from this dangerous product, but as you walk down the aisles of junk food at your local grocery stores, pass by the liquor section and watch individuals buying cartons of cigarettes, you got to wonder, is this really about our personal safety or the safety of the milk industry? Now, this control happens all over our food industry. Eating directly from the farm is prohibited by industry, so they can control our food supply. They make it very difficult for farmers to sell directly to us, whether dairy products or meat products. They suggest that they are protecting us, but this is really just a plot to control our food. One of the most common excuses given as to why farmers are being raided, prosecuted, and shut down is that raw foods may be potentially harmful to your health. But to think that pasteurized milk is safer than raw milk from a healthy grass-fed organic cow is simply untrue. And for those of you who have been lucky enough to try this illegal product as raw milk cheeses or yogurts, you know what an incredible difference there is in taste and texture. Tests have shown substantial nutritional benefits from raw milk dairy products over pasteurized dairy and defatted dairy products that you typically find in your local grocery store. Well, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA, warns that raw milk can carry disease-causing bacteria. What they completely overlook is the fact that these bacteria are the result of industrial farming practices that in fact lead to diseased animals, which may then in turn produce this contaminated milk. So you do not want to have raw dairy from industrially produced animals. They make no distinction whatsoever between disease-ridden factory farm milk and the milk from clean, healthy, grass-fed, pasture-raised organic cows. The former must be pasteurized in order to be safe to drink, while the latter does not. Now, you should definitely avoid drinking any raw milk from a conventionally raised feedlot cow, but drinking raw milk produced by pasture-fed cows from clean, well-run farms, on the other hand, is actually far less dangerous than drinking pasteurized milk. And in fact, not only does raw milk contain beneficial bacteria that are essential for a healthy digestive system, raw milk also offers protection against disease-causing bacteria. And in fact, research by Dr. Ted Beals, featured in the summer 2011 issue of the Wise Traditions, which is the quarterly journal of the Weston Price Foundation, show that you are about 35,000, not 3,500, 35,000 times more likely to get sick from other foods than you are from raw dairy. Now let's take a look at some of these products.
I've been in Canada twice on this subject. 2 years ago, I lectured all across British Columbia and across Ontario at University of Victoria, and actually talked to health ministers and all kinds of stuff. And from that, I've kind of gleaned an outsider's perspective on Canada with regards to raw milk. And what I've learned is that, unfortunately, in Canada, let's get this slide here, it's about the money. That's American dollars, by the way. I'm sorry I didn't get any Queen's dollars there. I should have got the Queen's dollars. But the bottom line is it's come down to politics, very, very thick politics, and money. It's not about safety. It's not about nutrition. It's not about these other things. It's about politics and money. Now, this PowerPoint was created in California before I came up here, so after this long week of visiting farms and doing work with TV interviews and radio interviews and working with people and visiting the nice big research facility you have here. What's it called, Mike? The Elora Research Facility, a $25 million state-of-the-art. I felt like I was walking into NORAD, It was incredible. This is an incredible facility resource for you. After coming through this experience, I would have tweaked this PowerPoint just a little bit, but I'm still pretty close, I think, in terms of a perspective from the outside looking in, helping Canada. I would have added a lot of pictures of producers and their consumers and other things, but I've got this PowerPoint to share with you to guide our conversation today. So politics and money has been a really, really big deal. When quota costs $26,000 to $30,000 or $40,000, depending on where you are across Canada, there's a lot of money to protect. The quota is a supply management program which Canada has done successfully to protect farmers' income, and it has done that. But it also keeps young farmers from getting into farming and dairy, and it also disregards, in this time, unfortunately, the choices of the consumers that may want to drink raw milk, because the quota system does not include raw milk yet. I'm hoping that with this knowledge and a lot of work, that it will sometime soon maybe carve out. There is authority to carve out, to allow market to be explored, to be researched, studied, and include new novel innovation in the market, the milk market. So we're hoping that we can bring this forward and actually allow other farmers to get involved, not just those that are trying their very best to serve their local customers. It's very, very interesting that in North America, in California, in the United States, and across Canada, we're experiencing the same kind of pasteurized fluid market decline. Every year, the marketing people in California and across the United States, and even in Canada, I've talked to the marketing people in British Columbia, they say, we spend money to try to promote fluid milk production. We add sugar, we do this, we add chocolate, and it just continues to decline. People are drinking soy milk, which I don't like, almond milk, which I kind of like because I produce almonds in California, but that's another story. But the bottom line is they're not choosing milk as a pasteurized fluid product. They're choosing yogurts, kefir, and cheeses. They're doing pretty well, but they're cultured products. They're easier to digest. They don't have the lactose intolerance and allergies to pasteurized fluid milk. And the charts are very clear. You see on the left-hand side this decline of pasteurized fluid milk consumption from the late 1900s to 2010 there. It's just going down. And this is USDA data, by the way. And on the right side, you see cheese going up. And that's an interesting dynamic because the fluid markets are suffering and they're not providing alternatives here in Canada for people who love raw milk. On the right-hand side, you can see in Canada, this is Canada data, that fluid pasteurized milk at 2% is declining, and all the other fluid milks are either declining or just kind of flat. And the yogurt's doing great. So it's kind of an interesting thing to see where the digestibility and the non-allergenicity of yogurts and cheeses are done quite well versus pasteurized fluid milk, which we call dead, is in decline. It's good for the shelf life, not so good for the gut life. The deader it is, the longer the shelf life, the harder to digest, the more allergenic, in basic terms. So pretty interesting to just see it. And you wonder, and it's all about dairy allergies and lactose intolerance. You go to the doctor with asthma, allergies, eczema, and most doctors will say, get off dairy, get off dairy. Well, now we're having doctors say, get on raw dairy, because the 17 big, huge studies in Europe actually show that raw milk is very good for allergies. It makes eczema go away. It's great for Crohn's disease. It's fantastic for asthma. And so when you have ear infections and asthma and allergies and frequent colds, and you put your kid on raw milk, and they get better, moms go passionate about it. And they start doing things like kissing and hugging their dairy farmer and paying them more than they should, okay? So it's this really exciting thing that's going on as a dynamic between the consumer and their dairy farmer. So raw milk is a universal human food because it has a complement of all of the necessary things in the food to be a whole food. Enzymes, bacteria, minerals, safety systems that do a pretty good job, not perfect, however, of reducing pathogen load, like lactoferrin, lactoperoxidase, and a bunch of other things in there that are destroyed or inactivated by pasteurization. Not all of them, but many are reduced in their efficacy. So raw milk, when produced in a safe environment, can be a very, very safe, very low risk food for all people if they allow the accommodation process to acclimate. Let the good bacteria colonize the gut, and what do you know? You actually start having those benefits. So, safety. Safety is a very, very plausible discussion. It's an honorable discussion. I have no problem with. I spend my time, a lot of my time, talking about safety. But it's also a really big excuse. It's a smokescreen to bury the deeper issues because it's so easy to scare people that your kid could die. What greater thing to say than your kid could die? That's truly true. Your kid could die. But here's the thing. Show me the bodies. Since 1972, there are 2 people that have been reported to have died from anything raw milk in the United States. It wasn't raw milk. It was actually imported raw cheese from Mexico that had listeriosis. We call it bathtub cheese or queso fresco. And who knows what the origin of that milk was, and it's not really American, it's from Mexico. But there's 2 recorded deaths from this queso fresco, listeria from Mexico. So I'm going to say that's not American. Let's look at the data just for American fluid raw milk. Yes, there's about 1,300 illnesses over that 40-year period, but there's no death. There's 450,000 illnesses from pasteurized cheese, milk, and ice cream, and about 70 to 80 deaths, depending on who you trust and who you believe in terms of the list. So pasteurization is not a perfect guarantee of safety at all. Yes, it reduces risks very effectively, but it is not perfect.